Hi
Right.
everyone, welcome back to Morning Cup. I am so excited today because I have Tilley Fine with me, and she is a certified stress and anxiety coach, keynote speaker, and mental health advocate. Tilly incorporates a unique blend of traditional coaching and therapy with spiritual, scientific, and practical approaches. Her focus is on somatic practices and healing the nervous system. She has helped hundreds of people move through their stressed and anxious minds into a state of deep personal success. Tilly supports individuals, families, and groups worldwide in navigating through childhood trauma and cultural influences affect us in our present day life. Her passion is to radically shift the way we think about life's challenges by ending the cycle of stress and anxiety through healing and connection. Tilly, thank you so much for being here today.
Dr. Caroline, I'm so honored to be here. I love your morning cup. I think it's such a genuinely different idea, and you have such a great variety of guests. I've really enjoyed watching it as it's evolved. So thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Of course, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story and journey because, like all the other individuals that have been on here, have been amazing. But your story too just resonated with me when we first met over a year ago now. But Tilly, can
Mhm.
you tell us a little bit more about your journey and then we'll just dive right in?
Sure. So I originally am from South Africa, but I have lived in Los Angeles for close to 30 years. And love it here. I started off in the corporate world in the music industry. I mean, if you live in LA, you're going to work in entertainment in some way, probably. So I had a very successful career in the music industry, in the corporate world, and for I was in that industry for 16 years. Uh, Traveled around the United States, had a wonderful, on paper, I checked all those Western cultural check boxes that we're brought up with that you need to check in order to reach your happiness state. So get it, you get a good education, you get a good job, you find a nice man who makes a lot of money, you buy a nice house in a good zip code, you drive a nice car, you have a good career, you get married, you have kids. Like I checked all the boxes with flying colors.
Yeah.
But when my daughter was born, and she's almost turning 13, she literally blew up my entire perfect life that I thought would have bring me success and happiness, right? I thought that's what it, and she from when this little being came into my life, I was like, oh my God, I can't. This is, I started to really get in touch with who I was as a person and not who I was supposed to be. And I started studying from that day and have just educated myself so much so that I was eventually able to leave the corporate world. And I am working primarily with stress and anxiety. And how I got here is interesting because I've studied I've studied almost everything. So for me, what the conclusion is over the past, I would say 5 years, is that there's a top down and a bottom up approach to healing. And what I mean by that is the top down is meditation, for example, talk therapy, um, breath work, stuff that top down approach, mindset, right? And then there's the bottom up approach, which could be things like breath work or cold showers, or it's healing the body. But the basis that meets that the both are very, very necessary and needed. All of those modalities are needed. But what meets them in the middle is the central nervous system. So, what I have learned and studied is that you can do all those things top down and bottom up if you do not learn to regulate your central nervous system. Those things are good, but they're just temporary, and you'll just continue to spiral, and just continue to make loops. So you may start meditation. Oh my God, meditation is a wonderful. I've meditated for so many years, and it is amazing. But if you cannot come from a regulated nervous system, it's a temporary fix.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to the basics of regulating your nervous system then brings the bottom up and the top down. Because everything that we do throughout our lives, especially as kids, but even through adulthood, anytime we are in fight, flight, or freeze, we store that in our bodies. Our bodies store that somewhere, somehow. And that's where the dysregulation of the nervous system comes from. So until we regulate our nervous system, we're going to heal. We will still heal, but it will keep cycling back. And even regulating your nervous system it's not linear, and it's not, oh, I'm fixed my nervous system now, I'm done. It's still, like everything else, going to be a continuous work and a process. But that is the root that we need to get to, is our nervous system. And so that's why I've really focused on healing the nervous system, and through somatically, right, through our bodies.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting too, because a lot of times people look at the surface versus like what's underneath that. And with the nervous system, you're right. If you are not healing that element, that is going to impact everything else too, because it's working from the inside out versus outside in. And I mean, you can work that way, but really being able to regulate our emotions and stress and anxiety, I know that's where you specialize too. And I think it's something that a lot of people are going through, especially with the pandemic and everything that's happened in the last few years in particular. So I'm curious, before we get into all of that, what led you to really start to really do the personal development and dive a little bit more deep into that? But how did you formulate, okay, I want to start a business now, I want to make this a business?
That's a great question. So when I figured out that, okay, this life I'm leading is not for me, I wanted to make other people aware that, we don't follow this, and I'm very happily divorced. I would say it's one of my, it's another subject, but we are very, very happily divorced. I changed everything, and I began to live or try to live from being authentic. And so I wanted to be able to share that, how to be. But when people say, oh, you've got to be, it was such a taboo word for me, like, be authentic. People need to be authentic. It's sort of like a word that we throw out there fairly often. But what does that actually mean? It means, for me, how are we going to heal ourselves so that we can present as the best person that we are meant to be? But it starts from internal healing. So when I figured that out, I was like, well, I need to be able to share that, right? I need to be able to, and all the courses I'm studying, all this, I need to be able to put it in a package that I can share. And then, just like you say, Dr. Caroline, the stress and anxiety affects all of us, all of us. And I have been through so many different levels of stress and anxiety, thinking that, oh, I have it under control. And then something else will come up and I'd be like, oh my God, I'm still resonant, and so it's been a constant challenge for me. But when you learn to let go of the perceptions of what you think you should be, and you can really go internally and try to heal what you have been through, whether it's been in this lifetime or past lifetimes, then you can learn to be the person you're meant to be. And that's when I feel like you can actually be happy. Not that I feel like happiness is the goal. It is one of the goals, joy, true joy, but it's just being the person that you were meant to be, and not the person that everybody else thinks you're supposed to be.
Yes, no, I think there's just so much truth to that too. When you think about like what you were saying earlier of your journey of like you checked off all the boxes, what society thinks is deemed as like happiness and perfection, and literally your life turning, but in a way that really makes you happy. And I think that's really a big takeaway from a lot of things I've heard and just experienced myself. And just what you're saying too is happiness, it comes from the inside. It's not the material things, like those are nice to haves, but like really being happy and allowing ourselves to live a fulfilling life where we are creating that internally too. And that's where I'm curious with your stress levels too. You said there was different levels of stress that you're like, okay, I got this under control. And then something else might have popped up. What did that really look like? If you can kind of give us a little picture of that.
Absolutely. So when I worked in corporate, I resonated, sorry, at a level of extreme stress. Like I traveled, sorry, I traveled every week somewhere new. I mean, it was fantastic. I'm not complaining. And I was just, I thought it was normal. Like that's who I am. I am the stressed person, you know, and my daughter, it doesn't matter what time I woke up in the morning or woke her up, we always were rushing to get out the door. Like we lived in this perpetual state of stress, right? It's how I resonated. And I thought I was just so busy all the time. I had so much to do. I could never get, even if I got through my to-do list, I still wasn't satisfied. And I just thought that was normal, that I was normal. Like, that's just who I am. Like I'm just that type of a person.
Yeah.
And then when I left corporate and started my own business, I stayed in the music industry with a boutique company and to help me through the transition. This was several years ago. And I didn't realize that my stress level it came down a little bit because it was different, right? It was a switch from working in corporate, to working in a smaller company.
Yeah.
And I thought I had my stress under control. And then when the pandemic hit, so that I had gone down a little bit because I realized how stressed I was in corporate. So I brought my stress level down into something way more manageable, which I was more comfortable with in this newer company, and doing all the work that I'm doing, working with clients, you know, doing all this work. And then when the pandemic hit and it shut down, everything shut down, only then did I realize that I was still resonating at this extreme level of stress. So much so that, you know, your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what's good and bad for you. So at the beginning of the pandemic, because we had no work to do, I had my business, but the music industry shut down, obviously, completely. Live music shut down. I transferred that busyness and that work habit that I had of constantly do into lists. I would make myself lists every day during the pandemic. This is what you have to do. And there was even lists like just self-care stuff. I started to list self-care. And what they did was it just regenerated and I caught myself. My subconscious mind brought me back to that comfort level of vibrating on this. Oh my God, I've got to do this every day. I literally had a checkbox of things that I had to do every day. For a lot of it was even the self-care stuff. So I saw myself recreating that same pattern that I had always perpetually lived on. And so that's when I had to really take a step back, and I'm like, look, I am learning this stuff. I am teaching this stuff. I need to really practice this stuff. And that was a huge wake-up call for me. And the pandemic really let me see that and understand that, and helped me really grow so much more so that I can really, you know, help my clients that way. But it was a massive wake-up call for me.
Well, I'm glad you had that wake up call, because it really allowed you to take a step back. And, you know, I think it's interesting because a lot of people that I know personally would say, Caroline, you have a lot on your plate. Like, this is so much. I'm like, oh, no, it's fine. This is my normal. Like, that high stress you're talking about, like, it was like chronic stress, but I was just so used to it and high volumes of it. It seemed like it was my life. It was just normal. And it's not. And I think bringing that home too, of recognizing when we start to get into that pattern subconsciously, we don't realize it right away, but then you start to see that you're recreating it. You're just transferring that energy to something else. Yes. Even if it's like with lists. I know I'm just like, you're speaking my language. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that, where there's just so much going on in everyday life that we need to take care of as adults, but also running a business too. And working with clients, so many different factors, but how do you reduce that? So I'm curious, when you did have that realization, what was that next step for you?
So it, just like you say, all of us have lots of stuff on our plates, right? And it doesn't, sometimes the misconception can be, well, we're too busy. Okay, so I have to stop doing this or stop doing that. It's not a matter of stopping necessarily what we're doing. But it's how we do it and how we approach it through our bodies, right? So taking your kid to school in the morning or getting out the door in the morning can be two ways. You still got to do it, but you can either be rushing and late and be so stressed and screaming at your kids and running out the door, or you can do it in a calm way, right? Where you're regulated and your children are regulated and everyone around you is regulated. If you yourself regulate, it doesn't mean that you have to give up anything that you're doing, right? I know you're super busy, you've got a lot on your plate, but you could still do all those things. But the difference is, are you doing it in a dysregulated state or are you doing it in a regulated state? Mm-hmm. So for me, during the pandemic was ideal. I know it was a sort of a anomaly situation because I literally could then spend time just really decompressing. And the biggest step for me was I was always outside of my body. I was never in touch with my body and what your body tells you and how you feel in your body. That was something that was, I knew about it. And I was like, yeah, I know. I do yoga. I'm in my body, and yoga is a good way for you to be in your body, right? I can do cold showers. I'm in my body, and it is that does bring you right into your body. That the regulation on a continuum throughout the day and resetting your nervous system just by simple little things changes your whole vibration from up here to down here, no matter what is on your plate. And it's a ripple effect, right? So for me, my daughter was pure evidence with this. Right before I left corporate and even into the, when I transitioned into my career, into my doing this business full time, and then I did some consulting work in the music industry. My daughter suffered from severe anxiety. She started to get severe anxiety. It's when she was like 10 or 11, severe separation anxiety. And since she was 3 months old, I had gone almost every week on a trip since she was 3 months old. And now suddenly at the age of 10 or 11, she developed, this is pre-pandemic, severe separation anxiety from me, to the point that if we were in our house together and I went outside to take the trash out, which is literally 5 feet where the trash can is, but in the garage, behind the garage, she would scream, "Mom, Mom." And she'd have to come with me, or I'd have to tell her, and she'd wait until I came back. Like, that's how extreme it was. And I'm thinking, but I've done all this work. I'm a certified conscious parenting coach. I've done all this work. What's going on here? And when the pandemic hit and I realized I was still up here, of course she's vibrating up here. So when I was able to bring myself down, it took a while. It's not instantaneous, but there's that ripple effect. And it's not just with your child or your spouse or the people at home, your partners. It's with everyone around you, all the people that you work with, all the people that work with you. It's a total ripple effect that starts with you and then it ripples out. And my daughter proved, like, she's proof that it works that way. And after a while now, she can't wait for me to leave the house so she can be on her own, right? It's the complete opposite. She'll wake up in the morning and I'll take the dog for a walk and she doesn't even know where I am. And she doesn't even text me anymore. Like, "Hey Mom, where are you?" She's just, she's just gets, so it's a complete 180. And that proved to me how when we come from a place of regulation, and it's very hard as a parent, then it's a ripple effect to everything, and everything you touch around you. Everything, your whole energy, stuff that you attract, everything, just every whole aura changes.
I believe it. And, I think that's a great observation too, of like how our energy can impact the environment as well. So I'm curious, because I know there's a lot around regulation, but what are some things that you do to regulate for you or with your clients?
Great question. Yes. So learning how to regulate your body, for me at least, and I think for a lot of people, is almost like learning a foreign language, because these are natural things that we do on a day-to-day basis. So the first thing for me was education, because we are higher beings. If someone says to you, "Hey, Dr. Caroline, go over there and stand on your head, and you know what? You will be cured from cancer." Like, I'm just being facetious here, right?
Yeah.
If you don't logically understand that, as a higher being, it's not going to have an effect on you, even if that is the cure. Like, it'll jeopardize it, right? And I'm using silly example, but so the education for me was understanding how the vagus nerve works and how the prefrontal cortex is our emotion and how to regulate and what happens when we dysregulate it. So getting educated was definitely a big step for me. And then it's so funny because it's just the simplest things to start off with that we don't do. So here's an example. If you're taking, like, this is my morning latte, right? I cherish it. This is my morning latte. But there's a difference between me taking this and drinking it and getting along, going around with the rest of my day, which I do, but being conscious of it and aware that, okay, this is my moment, this is my latte. I'm going to drink it, and then drinking it and experiencing how it feels in my body. How does my body feel right now? Something as simple as that. Or checking in a few times a day with, how do I feel right now? How I'm sitting on this chair. Okay, so now my back is leaning against the back. I feel the support on the back. I feel the cushion underneath my legs and my bum. I feel my feet on the floor. That slowly starts to rewire your brain as you start to slowly regulate. And you think it's just so silly. That's just, when I started it, I was like, this is so silly. Like, I know I'm sitting on the chair, like, but what you don't understand is being conscious of it starts to regulate. And then you can start to feel, well, how does my body feel? My back hurts a little bit. Then you can really focus on that. And then it's the rewire is really something that's so subtle, but yet so effective. Being conscious of your surroundings. So, okay, I'm in this room right now and I see a wall and a fan above me and there's a computer and a screen and a camera. Just being conscious brings you back into your body. It was a big thing for me. And honestly, I thought it was really silly in the beginning, but it was just so necessary. That was the one big step. And then another big step for me was understanding. So if I'm doing yoga, for example, and I get a sharp pain that comes up, let's just say it, my stomach goes, whoa. Most of us would be like, and I was like this, oh, it must be something I ate, or maybe I didn't digest my food, or something's wrong, right? Because nutrition is such a big part of this too.
Right.
It must be something I ate. But really, if we sit down and we acknowledge that this might be something that's been brought out that's been stored in your body somewhere from some type of a trauma or stress, and I don't like to use the word trauma, to throw the word trauma out there. It's some type of situation where you've stored something in your body that is not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
If you acknowledge that and know that it's there, that's when the healing starts. Instead of just dismissing it as, oh, it must have been something that I ate. So it's the awareness of your body, because your body will tell you everything. Your body holds all the answers. Your body holds everything, especially if your nutrition is, the gut brain. I know, you do the gut brain. Yeah. If you have good gut brain health, it opens up the avenues even more for your body to really heal and to show you where the healing is or what needs to be healed. And you don't have to know what the incident is. Like, if you get that feeling in your stomach, people try to think, well, what is that from? And they want to go back in their childhood. And is it related to a specific event? That's not necessary to regulate your nervous system. It takes the acknowledgement of knowing that's where it is and not trying to get rid of it or dismiss it, and just sit with it. And eventually the healing will start. And then slowly the rewiring of your synapses in your brain to transition you from that high state into, okay, I'm safe now. I'm safe.
Yes. No, you're absolutely right. And I'm so glad you're bringing that up, because I definitely think the mind and body are so connected. But the biggest thing is acknowledging it. I know, like, somebody, especially like my childhood, I had a lot of stress and anxiety, and I would carry it in my gut. And that's like a huge part of why I do what I do now. But I think it's just understanding too. Now I'm able to acknowledge that it's not something that I ate. It's not other things. It's like, okay, I didn't talk about an emotion. I suppressed it. I did something else, and it goes in the body because we're storing it, just like you're saying too. Yeah. And that's why it's so important. You might not have to identify exactly what it is, but knowing, okay, it's not something that you ate, unless it is, but being able to really acknowledge what your body's going through, because our body is a temple. Like, it is something that we only get one of, and being able to really preserve that and take care of ourselves internally. And that's why I love what you do too, really helping your clients with stress and anxiety. And I'm curious, when you started your business, because I want to kind of jump back to what was that deciding factor if I need to make this a business, I need to grow this and really help other people because you've helped so many people.
Thank you. Well, I started the first certification I started was a conscious parenting coach through the Dr. Shafali Institute. And so I initially started off by I want to do parent coaching. But
Mm-hmm.
then as that evolved, and I always commit to taking 3 major courses or certifications every year. And I started this like 10 plus years ago. So I have accumulated. And so as that I started as a conscious parenting coach, but as I expanded and learned so much more about the body and how it works and stress and anxiety, I transitioned. It was a natural transition for me to, well, stress and anxiety is something that happens for all of us. It doesn't mean I'm not doing the parenting. As a parent, you do suffer with stress and anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
but I wanted to go really deeper into the body and the somatic side of it. So the last few years, I've really been focusing on the somatic, how, the somatic therapies and modalities and how those can change us.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a natural progression for me. And also, I mean, in any business, this, Dr. Caroline, you just have to keep an open mind, right? And if you're open, it'll lead you in the direction that you want to go. I've been dealing with stress and anxiety now solidly for the last 5+ years. So I feel like this is where I am right now. But if it changes, it's, I'm also, it may change in the future, and I'm okay with that. But I feel like that's where I'm comfortable in my qualifications, at least in order for me to, to help others.
Yes. And you said something really important there, just about how, like, a lot of entrepreneurs, we have to pivot sometimes.
Yes.
And sometimes it's that natural pivot because you've outgrown what you're doing, or you get new knowledge and new education and more exposure to something where you're going to be able to have that open mind, like you're saying, and be able to go to that direction. And especially because your daughter was experiencing it as well, and being
Right.
able to help her and have the resources to help her, but being able to understand how what we go through can impact the entire family dynamic as well, not just
Yes.
us.
Very important. Yes. Very important. And just the awareness. So of experiencing emotion. So with my daughter, when she was little and she would fall over, it's our culture to, oh,
Hmm.
it's okay, pick her up, it's okay, you're gonna be okay, you're okay, you let me look at you, you don't have anything cut, you're okay. Instead, we need to let those emotions flow through, let her scream, let her cry, let her do whatever she needs to
Yeah.
do, and be there with her. Make sure she's safe, first of all, and be there with her.
Hmm.
And otherwise they get trapped in her body, which is what happened, right? So they get
Yeah.
trapped in her body. Got to let those emotions out. Same as an adult. Like,
Yeah.
literally, we don't know how to do that as adults. You let the emotion go, just let it go. And as
Hmm.
soon as you let it through your body, you can move on, instead of storing it, because it'll come up again at the
Hmm.
most, when you least expecting it. Somehow, somewhere, it's stored in your body and it will come up again.
You are absolutely right. It's so interesting you said that about the child falling. So my niece was in town recently, and it's so cool to see my sister, how she's like such an amazing mother, but like how like my niece like fell and she's just like, "Are you okay? How are you feeling?" Like giving her that space, but not immediately saying, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And that's something I used to do when I was like coaching little
Mhm.
kids and, "Are you okay?" But realizing too how much of that shift happens of letting them let it out, because they're going to be able to regulate their emotions and their nervous system if they're allowed to do that, and you give them that space and
Yes.
energy to do that. Because I know even as adults, which is a really great point too, I know sometimes if I'm like crying about something and like I don't allow it to fully cry, like let myself cry, later I'm going to be crying about it because I didn't let it all out and it was stuck in my body, or I get frustrated. And as adults, we do that, and that's okay. I think it's like you're saying too, that awareness piece of emotions are absolutely valid. It's allowing them to release so they don't get stored, because it can really impact communication and other factors too. I'm sure you can speak more to that.
Yes. So yes. And it's interesting what you say. As adults, there's little things that doesn't necessarily mean it is, but it does show you that your system is dysregulated. And one of them for me, for example, is if I'm watching TV and I'm watching a movie and I start to cry, it makes me cry, it makes me really emotional. That's because I'm coming from a dysregulated nervous system. Like that's a sign that your system is dysregulated. So I use that as an opportunity to regulate my system and to make my system feel safe. But it's little things like that we're not even aware of, that really are signals that we have a dysregulated nervous system. And I honestly believe that if we don't learn to feel safe and regulate our nervous system, it all manifests, like you say, in through the psyche or physically. It'll all come out of our body somehow. And so that's why it's just so important to go back to the root and heal the root before we try to heal anything on the outside, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I didn't even realize that. I was just thinking about that. I was like, I was crying the other day about like a movie I was watching, and
I
mean,
too.
it makes sense.
Yes. But it's because it's triggering something in you,
Yeah.
or it's bringing up something that an emotion in you where you felt dysregulated. So what I do now is I literally, when I'm watching a movie, I was doing it the other day too. I was watching a movie, lying on the couch, lazy Sunday, and I could feel myself. I could feel it. And so you acknowledge it. Like it like comes up, it swells up in your body. And, at least for me, everybody experiences things differently. Like, oh, and so all I did was just like, okay, I feel it's okay. I acknowledge that. I feel myself lying on the couch. I can feel the couch underneath me. I can feel my feet on the couch. It should be on the floor, but on the couch. I can feel my head on the pillow. And you can take your eyes off and look around and say, okay, I can acknowledge what your eyes naturally see. And that immediately calms you down. It's not going to necessarily take the crying away. That's not the goal, but the goal is during that emotional moment to let it flow and to feel safe, right? You're safe now to feel that emotion. That's the difference. Are you safe right now to be able to cry and feel that emotion versus just not like just crying, and not having that regulation. So, and then again, it slowly starts to rewire and rewire.
So fascinating.
I
The
know.
things you learn. You can never know everything. That's the beautiful thing. That's why we're constantly learning, constantly evolving as well. So I did want to ask you, because I know you have several different approaches, but what are maybe a few that you use with your clients currently?
So with my clients, I explain very much the top down, bottom up, right? That we need pick the modalities that work for you, but understand that you have to start at the very beginning. And so I start with my clients I'm doing some online courses where we start with basics. Like, here's the basic. On a daily basis, pick 3 to 4 times a day when you start to connect with your body, with your connection. Where is your body? How does your body feel? And then I have them do every day, just even if it's 3 to 5 minutes of one of the modalities that work for them, because they all are necessary, right? But they work together. So I try to take the pressure off this is just little bits at a time, right? This is how you start. You start with small basics, 3 to 4 times a day. Check in with yourself. How does your body feel? What are you connecting with? How do the clothes on you? How is that sitting? Whatever works for you. Go out in nature. How are you relating to the trees, the sky? Look up, feel how that is in your body. As simple as that. Drink your coffee, sip it down, really experience it. How does it make you feel? How does that coffee feel going down your throat when you're swallowing? Being aware, and then pick one modality a day. What happens to a lot of coaches and a lot of therapies and a lot of courses we take is it's overload. Like, it's the opposite of what happens. So in the beginning, my clients are always like, well, this is nothing. Like, this is not, they want more and more. They want like a fix it. They want me to tell them, no, you need to meditate for an hour every morning. And then at night, I need you to do a cold shower. And, they want me to give them that. And that's not what it is, because that's putting them back into, that's their subconscious mind, putting them back into, well, I need to be doing, go, go, go.
Right.
So I really start with the basics, and it sounds so simple. It's very difficult to do. It's extremely difficult because we as a culture don't experience doing nothing, like the nothingness of it or the simplicity of it. We don't, in our minds, it until you get that education and you can relate to it, right?
Right.
It's like, this is a waste of time. So I start my clients with that. And it's very difficult for them in the beginning because they're like, well, this is a waste of time. I'll see that, a week later, they'll be like, yeah, well, nothing's changed. We all expect, as I used to be, this
Right.
massive change. But I also start them on, so I do a bit of both. I start with the top down and the bottom up, but very slowly in small increments, because as soon as we blast out the box, your subconscious is going to just wheel you right back into how you felt. So the goal with me and any of my courses and anything I teach is starting at the real basics, the very basic level, which most people scoff at, as I used to. Like, this is just so simple. It's too simple. And building from there.
Yes.
All the way up to, really working with your inner child, like going through everything, but it has to start with the basics of the dysregulated system.
Yes, no, and it's so true with everyone else too. They'll be like, well, it's so simple, it's not complex, like I don't want to deal with that, or it's like I already know that. But you're right, it's those small increments make the biggest difference. And
Yes.
a lot of people, it's getting your head around that, especially if you're so used to that high stress and the chronic stress and even burnout. But being able to understand too the depth of it, of how this can really transform. Because when people try to change everything at once, it really isn't going to happen. But I love how you approach it.
Yeah. I mean, just like you say, Dr. Caroline, it's like if, we're going to go to the gym, we're going to start going to the gym for 5 days a week, an hour every day. Yeah. And that lasts like the first 2 weeks. And then you start to miss, right? You miss a day, because your subconscious mind's like, whoa, we don't go to the gym every day. Yeah. So that's why. And then you get right back into your habits. And the more you're upset at yourself for missing a day, you're just reinforcing that subconscious mind. You're reinforcing that brain pattern, that wiring in your brain that we don't work out every day. And so you not only do you go back, but you just actually slip, you even go back even further. And it's not like we're linear or anything, but we reinforce that, oh, I don't go to the gym every day. It's just a reinforcement.
Yes.
So the small things are so important. Like you say, they make such a huge difference, but it's very hard for us as a human race to accept that is actually your healing. That's going to lead to your healing.
You're absolutely right. And I know you mentioned online courses, but I have to ask, I know you have a masterclass coming up. Could you tell us more about that?
Yes, I do. Thanks for asking. I actually have a masterclass on this. The topic is how to stop getting passed over for a promotion at work. And when I first brought this up to some people in my community, they were like, well, wait a minute. That's a little off from the stress and anxiety, but actually it's not. It's the same. It's a different pattern. Because I worked in corporate for so many years, I totally relate to the working environment of people in a working environment. And, I worked there for so long. So the promotions, and I understand everything around that. So my masterclass is, why is it, trying to look at the why, understanding the why that we may get passed up for a promotion. Obviously, it's not the regular stuff like there is no promotion, or you're not hitting your sales. Like I'm not, everybody knows those things. Right. But the real inside of us is, why is it? What is it? How are we contributing to maybe repeatedly getting passed up for a promotion? How do we take the responsibility into ourselves? How is it that, our bodies are, how are we showing up in our bodies, in our mind, in the workplace? And so coming at it from that angle. So I'm very excited about that. It's going to be towards the end of June. I've had to sort of change my date a little bit, so I don't have a set date right now because of due to some travel that has come up, but it's going to be towards the end of June.
Perfect timing. That's right around the corner, and we'll definitely have that below so people can join in as well. But I think that's such a cool shift too, because it's very much in your lane, but the stress and anxiety that comes from trying for that promotion or moving towards that promotion can be really stressful. And it's something that I don't think a lot of people talk about. At least I haven't heard. I'm sure there are people do talk about it, but I haven't heard a lot about it. So I'm glad you are doing it.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. And before we get into the rapid fire questions, I have one more question.
Okay.
What are some tips that you can give us around reducing stress and anxiety outside of the ones you've already given when it comes to regulating our system, but things that people can start doing now?
So the first tip I would say is just act like we talked about is acknowledging like, okay, I am stressed right now and not necessarily need to change it. So if you're rushing to get out there and you're late and you can't find your phone and just acknowledge, okay, I'm stressed right now. I'm really stressed. I'm stressed. Or you snap at someone, just acknowledge, right, that, okay, I'm in a state of stress. So the first thing is awareness
Mhm.
is just be aware that you're stressed because the more you're aware, the more you start to see, wow, this is how my body functions. And then find something that may not be that you do right then and there. A lot of people say, take a deep breath, right? Just take a breath. Breathe in, take a breath. Yes, that can be very effective for some people. But what I have learned is that breath work and deep breathing for some people can accelerate stress and anxiety. It depends where you are and how the breath works for you.
Oh,
So the
wow.
generic things like close your eyes and take a deep breath may escalate some people and put them more into that feeling of unsafety or, stress and anxiety, the fight and flight mode,
Yeah.
even more so. So you as a person have to find out what feels good for you. What is going to work for you when you know you're in that, so you have to figure out, okay, so I'm really anxiety. Does taking a deep breath work? Does closing my eyes and sitting for a second work for me? Whatever works for some person, the logical stuff like take a breath or take a pause does not work for everybody, especially neurodivergent people that are super sensitive, right? That may actually escalate it. So you have to work on something. Maybe it's as simple as just acknowledging or going for a walk outside or taking a few steps backwards or looking out the window, or it can be a variety of things, but you as an individual need to look for something that calms you down. Maybe it's holding onto the table, or there's these things where you teach people to go like this and give yourself a hug. But again, for some people it works, but not for everyone. So some people pat like this, some people rub their hands together. You have to find something that you feel comfortable with inside, and it's not just take a breath. It's not one size fits all.
Right.
Once you can do that and you start to little by little use that, maybe you sit down, whatever it is, you have to experiment. Use that. Then it's the awareness, the acknowledgement. Okay, I'm really stressed crazy. And then if you can in that moment use that tool, or go and use that tool at another time, find something that just helps you a little bit to calm down. Different for everybody.
Yes, no, you're absolutely right, because I know that's one of the things that I tell people to do too, is just like taking a few deep breaths. But you're right, it can really escalate depending on the person.
Yes.
And it can be generic in some ways, but it
Right.
really is tuning into that person and that individual. Like you said, it's not a one size fits all, and I completely agree with that as well. I do think it is finding what works for you, and that's why it's cool to have different tips and seeing what works, but also having somebody who's an expert helping you too that could really reduce that, like yourself.
Right. So you don't think you're crazy, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
someone taking a breath, everyone, oh, well, I don't feel good. I just
right.
doesn't make me feel, for me, breath work works very well, but it's not for everybody. And then they're like, well, this is not why, and it could accelerate it. So it's something, everybody is so different and in tuned.
Yeah.
I had a client that, I've always had long hair. So people touch my hair and it's, for me, it's normal. Like it's happened my whole life. People will stroke my hair or they'll touch it or something, but some people, it will literally send them on a spiral if somebody touches their hair. And I learned that from a client. Like, when you work with clients, you learn just as much as they learn.
Yes.
So I learned that from a client who is very traumatized by somebody touching their hair. It really viscerally comes up in them as a state of panic. So it's all these little things that we have to learn for what works best for us.
Yes, absolutely. Tilly, this has been so fun. We're going to
I
jump
know.
into the rapid fire questions if you're ready
Okay,
for them.
great. Let's do
Okay.
it.
The first question is, who is your hero?
My hero, I would have to say, is my mom, although she would look at me like, if she said that. My mom actually lives with us most of the year. She spends a lot of time with my brothers, but she is someone that I can watch the good and the bad, right? I can see she's very good with stress and anxiety, but she holds everything in. So she is the most solid person in my life.
Mm.
And I learn from her mistakes as much as I learn from her. And I don't mean that she makes, we all make mistakes, but I can see what's not happening with her and what is happening with her. And she just handles everything, no matter what it is, with such grace
Mm.
and moves and flows through it, even if she doesn't understand what's happening. And that is something that I don't know if I would have survived, how I would have survived if I didn't have her as that solid rock in my life.
Oh, she definitely sounds very grounding. Oh, what an amazing woman. So, what motivates you to work hard, to work smarter, and to really accomplish what you've accomplished?
My daughter,
Mm.
because at the end of the day, I am terrified that I'm going to screw up her life. So that is a real motivation for me to make myself a better person and to teach other people how to be better people, because I am responsible for this human. I mean, and I've learned through all the studying that I've done that I'm responsible in the sense of keeping her safe and being a guy and being an example for her. I need to be an example for her. Otherwise, she's going to have to do a lot of therapy when she's older. I mean, she already does therapy. We all need therapy, but that's what drives me. Learning to be a better person for me so that I can have that ripple effect for her.
Absolutely. And I think too, it's just like being able to model that and know
Mhm.
that you are that guiding force for her, because
Mhm.
we all make our own decisions and everything like that. But I think it just shows the fact that you said you're terrified, but of making a mistake or anything like that. But it's really about, it shows your true colors too of how an amazing person you are and doing the best you can
Yeah.
with the tools that you continue to learn to and embody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I tell her that I'm like, okay, I'm very open with her so she can see, as how as an
Yeah.
adult I said, I screwed up, I messed up, I'm scared, I don't know what's going on. I try to tell her that because it's not my role to control her in any way. It's my role just to show up as myself and let her hopefully learn by example.
Absolutely. That is absolutely true. So when it comes to if you were to be a superhero, what powers or power would you have?
Hmm. If I was a superhero, I would like to be able to take a wand and allow people to relax, like put them in a state
Mm.
of relaxation. Like if I could, ping, right? Okay, now you relax. You're no longer like this anymore. But
Yes.
yes, but I mean, obviously, to a certain degree, like we have to be like this, right? The fear is so necessary because if you wake up and there's an alligator in the bed next to you, like you need that fear to get out, otherwise you're dead.
Yeah.
So so it would have to be a very special type of a
Mm.
situation when you relax someone, not when they've got a tiger chasing them. You don't want them to be relaxed then.
Rightfully so. That's a really cool power. I appreciate that one.
But I do think there's a big difference that people don't understand between fear and anxiety, because
Mm.
fear is there to protect you in the moment. Anxiety is anticipatory, right? It's the energy, it's the future energy. You're using that future energy, projecting in the present moment. So my superpower would be to eliminate the anxiety for any future energy.
Mm.
Zap it.
I like it. Let's make it happen. I was saying that on one of my last interviews. I was like, I just want to be able to take all these powers and let everyone have that power, whatever it is. That'd be really cool. But with that being said, if you were to share a meal with any four individuals, living or dead, who would they be?
Love this question because it's so interesting and it changes all the time. But right now, it's Brené Brown. I love her. I love her so much. Um, um, I would have to say Dr. Gabor Mate, who's one of my heroes. He's phenomenal. He's a trauma expert. Maya D'Angelo, who just is so like she is so regulating for me, all of the things that she says. And then always somebody like Tinkerbell or somebody to keep the child in us alive, right? I feel like we always shut down our child side. So Tinkerbell would be a great person to keep us all in a childlike sort of state.
Yes. And not Peter Pan there, never grow up.
Right.
I love that. I haven't heard that one before. That's going to be a very fun, interesting meal. Very lively too.
Yes.
And calming.
Lively,
Calming and
yes.
lively. With that being said, what if you have done, what has been the most daring thing that you've ever done in your life?
Definitely walking out of what's deemed a very successful corporate job in the music industry, and just walking away from that was a very, very difficult decision for me. And everyone and anyone I know was like, are you crazy? Are you nuts? Like, what are you doing? So that was very difficult for me to do, but the most freeing thing also that I've done ever.
Well, when you go against the path of what society deems as success and following your own intuition and your own heart and doing what truly lights you up, it's all worth it.
Yes.
Well, good job on doing that.
Thank you.
And that is very daring because a lot of people have a lot of opinions, and
it's safety, right? I had a big safety net. Like I could have stayed there forever, and it wasn't like I hated it. I didn't hate it. I loved it was love. I mean, I was in the music industry. It was a great role that I had. It was a great career, but it just it just wasn't for me. Like it's just it wasn't who I'm meant to be.
Absolutely. No, and our bodies will tell us that too.
Yes.
In so many ways.
Yes.
It's true. I can speak from my personal experience. But with that being said, what is the phone app that you use the most?
Definitely Instagram.
Mm-hmm. It's a good one.
Yes.
Lots of connections.
Yes. Instagram for sure.
And what is the last book that you've read?
The last book I read was Breath by James Nestor, but I have now read it 3 times. And it's very interesting. It's a phenomenal book. And so I read that coinciding with a book called Untangled. I forget who the author is, but it's about teenage girls. So I read them both simultaneously, but Breath I have read now 3 times. It blows my mind every time I read it.
Yeah, somebody else just was telling me about Untangled.
Untangled is any mom that has a girl around the age from 10 plus going on should read that book. It really is. And even me who's studied, and I still have groups from conscious parenting, and I still have we all read that book. We read a lot of books, but that's one of them. And it's an amazing book. It's a must read for a parent with a girl, with a daughter.
Good to know. I know a lot of moms with girls, so that will definitely be a recommendation that I will be giving. My next question is, what if you were to have a movie about your life thus far, who would play you?
Okay, Nicole Kidman.
Yeah, I can see it.
And it might be, okay, I go back and forth between the red and the strawberry blonde and the blonde. And, and every time I'm really strawberry blonde, they're like, oh my God, it's Nicole Kidman. So definitely her. And I think she's awesome.
Oh, she's amazing. And such a phenomenal person, like yourself.
Yes, I love her. She's great. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So if you were to be an animal, like personality type and whatnot, what animal would you be?
This is also a funny question. I love it. I think I would be an Afghan. Okay. Because how they, the hair, they've got that long, swishy hair, and they swish her through. I think I would be an Afghan if I if I was an animal. I think an Afghan is the closest.
I love that. That's a first. No one else has said that.
Okay. What would you be, Dr. Caroline?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I would be a lion.
Okay, I can see that.
Because I'm a Leo,
Mhm.
but I'm very like quiet. I tiptoe until it's like time, and then once it's time, I like go full force of things.
Mhm.
So I think like personality type that would definitely be me, and I'm very protective of like my family, my friends, the people I love dearly. So I'd be a lion.
I can see that. I can see that. That's cute.
So if there was your day's just not going good, you're having an off day, what is something that instantly makes it better?
If my daughter is in a good mood and she gives me a hug and she talks to me because she's almost 13 now.
Mhm.
So they don't want to have anything, everything I do is wrong, and they don't want to have anything to do with their parents unless she needs something.
Right.
But occasionally she, if she wakes up in the morning, she comes up to me and she gives me a hug like that, just oh, there's just nothing better than that. Just nothing better than that.
Uh, Especially that age. It's a hard age.
It is. Yeah. It's a fun age though. I'm fascinated by the teenage brain. It's very fascinating.
It is. It definitely is. That I'm sure would make your day better. And so, if you have a day off where you're not working with any clients or running any groups or doing your masterclass, what are you doing for fun? Like, what's your favorite thing to do?
So I know this is probably going to sound kind of weird, but doing, for me, doing nothing, absolutely having nothing on my to that I have to do is the most perfect day for me. And I have to mindset myself because there's my work that I do. I love it, right? So there's always something I'm working on that I want to do. It's not that I have to do it, I want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So on the weekends, if I don't get through something on a Friday, I'll be like, oh, I'm going to work on this over the weekend. But if I don't mentally say to myself, okay, it's Sunday, I'm not going to do that work. I'm constantly like, oh, I'm just going to lie here for a little while. I'm just going to go for a walk and then I'll do it. And then I don't get to relax. So the
Yeah.
best thing that I can ever do for myself is to just allow myself to literally do nothing for the day. And however that takes me, I'll do it. I don't touch work, and I'll do whatever I feel like. Take a nap, watch TV, go for a walk, lie by the pool, whatever I feel like, without having an agenda. Like even if I have one thing on my calendar, it like throws me off. I'm like, oh, you know. So my perfect day is not having anything to do, not no to-do list, nothing that I have to do for the day, and just go and just do nothing. And sometimes I literally, Dr. Caroline, will just binge watch something, lie on TV and watch. I don't watch TV very often, but if I find a show that I like, I'm like, okay, and I'll watch it from beginning to end, and I'll just binge watch the whole thing on a Sunday. And then my day goes by and I'm like, and acknowledging it, I'll automatically go, I didn't do anything today. I always feel that. And I'm like, you did. Doing nothing is the best thing for you. So when I have those days when I have nothing on my agenda and I just go for a flow and whatever comes up, that
Mm-hmm.
to me is the perfect day.
Uh, that sounds lovely. And I'm glad you brought that up too, because I think a lot of times I used to be like this, where like, I can't not do anything. I have so much going on. Like, I don't have time to take a day off. But really allowing ourselves to do nothing can be the best thing for us,
Yes.
to really relax the mind too. So I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought that up.
Because nothing is something, right?
Yeah.
It's the same as when people feel numb. They're like, I don't feel anything. But feeling numb, like your body, like, are you in touch with your body? Well, I'm just numb. I don't feel
Hmm.
anything. That is something. Numb is something. Like,
Yeah.
but we disregard it. So
Hmm.
it's really important to acknowledge. Yeah. Lying on the couch with no agenda is really bliss. I mean, I end up doing stuff, but it gives myself that,
Hmm.
it gives myself the permission to literally do nothing.
Yes, it's about giving ourselves that permission. You're absolutely right. Keywords.
Yes, yes.
And I have a final question for these is what's something an outsider wouldn't know about your industry?
That an outsider will probably go after a technique, right? Like mindset, that's going to cure everything for me, or ice baths, that's going to cure where I am, or talk therapy, that's going to cure everything for me, or whatever the yoga, like that, whatever the modality is, people think that, oh, this is working for me, and some modalities do work better for others, right? All of us have different affinities towards the different modalities, but it's a combination of a number of modalities, and it's a constant work. It all comes down to the basic, like we talked about, is that the central nervous system and how your nervous system is regulated or dysregulated. And from that platform, you need to use all of these other modalities. But until you get a hold of the center of it all, these modalities on the outside will definitely be helpful, but you will keep spiraling back and probably move from modality to modality, thinking that you can find the answer in those modalities versus finding the answer in your nervous system.
Yes, no, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that too, because I think you just gave us all a little closer lens on that. But with that being said, Tilley, it has been such an honor having you on. But before I let you go, where can people find you and hire you? We'll link everything below in the description, but if you could let us know too.
So Instagram is my preferred. Facebook is also, I'm on Facebook, and then I have my website, which is www.tilleyfine.com. So I have those three modalities, and anyone can reach out on any of those. And I will be posting a lot more about my upcoming masterclass and courses that I'm working on towards the end of this year too.
Perfect. Well, we can't wait to see those. And again, thank you so much for taking the time today to share your story, your journey, and all the modalities that you use to really help people from the inside out. We are honored to have you.
Thank you, Dr. Caroline. It's so good to be here. I'm really, I love, as I say, I love what you're doing, and I love your guests, and I know some of them. So it's truly an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below. What was the biggest takeaway from Tilley? Did you learn something new? Leave in the comment section below, and we'll see you on the next video.